Hello everyone, welcome back to my Let's Replay channel. Once again, this is Andrew T coming at you, and this is my vlog review of Full Throttle and FTL. These were both great games I enjoyed playing immensely back when I first got them, and the replay value on them is definitely high, so this is going to be a pretty good one here. I really love Full Throttle. It was one of the few LucasArts games I didn't have to get a hint book or look up online. Well, not even back then there was online, but I didn't have to ask friends how to beat it, because everything about the game, it was very simple, and the fact that it started you out in one thing and then let you grow, and the puzzles that it gave you were logical. For a LucasArts game anyway, it was a lot more logical, but the options it gave you were narrowed down to what you could and couldn't do. So it's not like you had like 15 different locations and try to find the one thing to go with the other thing, and then to move forward like 5% to get to another part where you had to do. That's usually, like the Monkey Island games, Tentacle games. When this came out, it was very simplified and very well done for its time. The remastered version looks good. It's still dated graphics, from the 90s, but it is definitely worth picking up if you've ever played the game before or haven't played it at all. I would definitely recommend it, even at the full $15 price. They had it on sale for their pre-order, but even when it came out, they still had the same sale. So I got the that version when it came out, and the voice acting for the time is top notch. You'll recognize a lot of the voices in there. You'll get Rob Paulson is in there. He was Pinky. You'll have they did the Brains voice from Animaniacs. You'll have Mark Hamill in there, and it's pretty much one of his very first just pure voiceover works in video games. Not counting the Wing Commander FMV stuff he did, and and the third one and its sequels. But this was his kind of intro to voice acting, as a full character in Malevolence. So you can definitely hear a little bit of the Joker in there in his voice. He's got the low evil voice that he does so well, and this was kind of the beginnings of it. But as the main antagonist in the game, he's great. The writing is still spot on. Still, straight Double Fine / LucasArts, Tim Schafer humor from back then, but in a more adult. It was a more adult themed game because you're a leader of a biker gang, so you can't really go around solving puzzles with plungers and and fish or whatever. You solve it using your fists, using weapons. People do die in this game. A lot of people die in this game actually, and I've only played through a little bit after I stopped my video. So even then, a couple people died, or got in car wrecks, or thrown off motorcycles, injured, whatever the case may be. But the themes are adult. The remastered version looks good for its age, and for the time it was revolutionary because they had the 3D models of the bikes and the 2D models of the backgrounds and the characters on them just looked good. It just looked good for the time. So when you got this game, it was like you were getting that next level of animation and quality to a video game for an adventure game, or any game at that point. The replay value, that's the only thing. Once you play through it once, the replay value is fairly high after that. It's not like, oh my gosh, I can do 15 different endings, but the choices you make and the dialogue options do give you a lot of replayability, just because certain scenes aren't the same for the second time you go through, or even the third or fourth. I believe the first time I played through it, it gave me an option to talk to the bartender, the very first person you kind of interact with in the game. And if I didn't choose the bottom option, then eventually it'd be like, you want anything? I'm like, no, then get out of here. I missed the option. I didn't get to do it. So I did a replay right after my video, just because I want to see, if there's anything else I could do, and I chose different options. I got different voice acted lines, so it was very, very good in that sense for the replay value. The only thing, I really love getting DVD commentary and video game commentary, especially with the LucasArts stuff from Tim Schafer back in the day. I loved it when they did Monkey Island 1 and 2. I loved it when they did it on Grim Fandango. That was really interesting to kind of hear the backstories of, even if it wasn't all interesting, it was like for stuff that specifically interests me, or cool stories, it was still worth it to get the backstories of a lot of stuff in the game as it was progressing. And I looked up the controls as soon as it started and said, okay, for commentary, hit A. So I'm like, all right, so it's got to be like the other, LucasArts where, there's an icon here and you can press on it and they'll be able to hear the commentary for, this area of the game. I pressed A on like the first 15 to 20 screens. I could not see anything. I didn't hear anything. I thought, does it just come up? Do you have to have it on from the beginning? There's no icon when you hit the button. I was looking up the controls like 3 or 4 times going, if all I have to do is hit A, then, something should come up somewhere. Nothing. So I don't know if it's a glitch or they're just something I need to do that I haven't found yet. I'll probably look it up later and maybe do a third playthrough at this point from the beginning just so I can hear the audio commentary, or I may just look it up online. But if anyone's uploaded it yet with the audio commentary, but at this point I thought it was kind of a pretty drastic oversight because the remasters are a lot about the commentary that's added on with them. But other than that small issue, I'm still enjoying the heck out of it. The humor is is still good if you like the original LucasArts, Tim Schafer humor, Double Fine, and adventure game. And I could say more about it, but it would get into story and spoilers. There's a couple scenes that are just iconic in the game that I would definitely recommend, and you'll know them when you see them because some music comes on and some bunnies are involved. That's all I'm going to say about it. That was the first game we played, and if I had to give a score for the replayability and the remastered version, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, just because, like I said, a 9 would be pretty much like, oh, it's aged perfectly, like, Half-Life 2 or something, where you don't even notice the graphics or anything like that. This is like a 20-year-old game, pretty much. So even though the graphics look good, they still well put together, it's still a 20-year-old game. So the replayability is fairly high because of dialogue and the different scenes that you get for the cutscenes. Some things do change, so that's still pretty high. Even buying it now and beating it, in 4 or 5, 6 hours maybe, if you just blast through, everything to do all the puzzles. The mechanics are still good. They're still enjoyable. The writing's still good. The voice acting is still top notch. It's a solid 8. It's a solid 8 if I had to give my own personal opinion on what I liked and what my preferences are. And the scores I give on this are just all purely my opinion on what I think and what I enjoy. So if there's a game I don't like, I may give it a lower score just because I'm not into it. But moving on to the next game, FTL. Another game I have played a very, very, very large amount of over the years as soon as it came out. I was looking for on I had a tablet for a while before it broke, and I was looking for it on like the App Store, and they didn't have it. So, and I was like, this is a perfect game to just pull up anywhere, anytime. Play it for a couple minutes, or even if you're in line, and then just like, oh, save an exit, and then pick it up right again, anytime, anywhere. But that's the thing. If you have it on PC, have it downloaded on your computer or any console, I think if it may have come out on there in the past. It's easy just to pick up and play. Anytime you're there, like, oh, I want to play this. Let's pick it up and play it. It's definitely something that is geared towards ease of use. So it's a very bare bones game in the fact that there's no real animation to speak of, other than you have basically a static environment. You have your ship. You have, if you unlock all the ships, you get kind of different layouts and abilities / rooms and weapons to start out with, and then easy, medium, hard settings. it's your job to basically get them to one side of the map to the other. And the maps are procedurally generated every game, so there's no two that are alike. So, but always the same thing. You start on the left, you end up on the right. Whether it's a bottom left or into top right, or top left to bottom right, or somewhere in the middle, doesn't really matter, because the nav points that you start out at can be set in specific spaces that some run into dead ends if you go too far. Some you may have to backtrack. So that is a very strategic part of the game, just for movement, to try to get to the ending checkpoint to the map you're on, so you can go to the next quadrant. And there's like, I think, 8 or 9 quadrants before you get to the final boss battle, and probably around 30 checkpoints in each quadrant there. But because they're procedurally generated, you kind of have to map that out. But it does get interesting just from the movement aspect of it, and because the Rebel fleet is about 3 moves behind you to start out. Before they show up on the map, you can kind of get a buffer if you want. But if you were like, hey, maybe there's some good stuff up here, I could go get. And then if you don't get back in time, you can get caught by the Rebel fleet. And in the beginning stages, when you're pretty much the weakest, if you don't plan it out correctly, then the Rebel fleet will catch you. And even if they're not that much powerful than you, you're pretty much going to get wrecked and have to start over anyway, because you'll be either on fire, or most of your guys will die, or your ship is, just beat to hell, and any encounter you get into after that's basically going to kill you anyway. So, the playthrough I had was one of the best I've had for the beginning stages, because usually you only get one of those encounters where you get a free weapon. I got like 3 or 4 of them. It was insane. So when I get to the store, it's almost OP at that point, because I can sell all that for scrap and then just upgrade my ship and then get the best weapons, and upgrade my shields and weapons at like the 3rd level out of like 9. So I'm pretty much going to be OP, but that almost never happens in like I gotta say, dozens and dozens and dozens of playthroughs I've had of the game. But the ship management and battle system that you have whenever you go to a nav point in the quadrant is very well done, even though your ship management is basically your ship never moves. But they do have some animations for the characters in the ship that you get to move around from room to room. There's like a med bay and pilot room where you have to have someone at if you want the ship to move and stuff like that. So there's little idiosyncrasies that you can do for some micromanagement. But if you just want to say, hey, you're on shields, you're on weapons, you're the pilot for the 3 guys they give you, then you can have that for the whole game if you want. And your guys do level up the more they're in those rooms, and they have to actually do the things that the room's assigned for. Like if your shields get hit, your guy will get like 1 little tick for being in there and experience getting the shields maybe back a second or 2 faster once he levels up. Same thing with the guns, because everything in this game for battle is timed. So whenever you get into a battle with another ship, you can scan it and get some data on it, like, okay, attack here, attack there, and they're a static screen too. So you just like, all right, click on this room, that room, and your weapons can be, stuff that has ammo like missiles. There's drones, if you have that capability for the ship you're in, that just fly around and fire periodically. But the ones I like are pretty much the lasers and the beams, because you can use the lasers to take down the shields, and then the beams to just go from room to room in a solid beam to just do damage to either systems or set fire to open rooms over time. And that's usually a good way to get to the end. That's usually an OP way to do it. But just the replay value alone, like I did in the video, one of my first encounters, I beat the guy, but I didn't know that 3 rooms were on fire, and as I put it out, I didn't realize that there was no oxygen in that room, so my guy suffocated before I can get him out of there into the med bay to get, healed, and I'm like, okay, with 2 guys, it's very hard to do anything, and there's no guarantee you'll get any more crew members throughout the game, because you can either get them at stores, where there's no guarantee you'll get a store in every quadrant you go to, where you can repair, you can get items, that depending on what they have, they don't have an unlimited stock of everything. So if you have 2 fuel left and they have like 10, you can just buy 10 and that's it. And if you run out before the end of the quadrant, before you get to the exit to get the next one, then you have to wait and wait and wait. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 turns before someone comes in, just gives you fuel to, get limped to the next store or the next nav point. So they may only give you 3. They may only give you 5. They may give you like 2. And if you can't get an exit on that and the rebel fleet's right behind you, guess what? You may have to wait again, and then your game's over, and you have to start all over again. But I can go through a lot of the little idiosyncrasies and the strategies on the game, but I'll leave that to those who watch the video to kind of find out. And like I said, it's a fairly cheap game as well, and it ages well because it's bare bones, but the variety it gives you is very high. So if I had to give it a score for just playing it now, I want to go back and play it now. The replayability, I'd have to give it a 10 out of 10. Just because procedurally generated, that has very, very deep depth to it. No matter if you're playing a game that you put like 2 hours into one single game just trying to get everything perfect, or if you've restarted 4 or 5 times trying to get that perfect run. And there are secret missions too. Like I had to decline one because I didn't have the ship for it. Didn't have a way to stun a vessel. And that sometimes unlocks ships. So it was really it's definitely a 10 out of 10 when replay value. To give it a score though, on my opinion, it's probably a 9 out of 10, just because it's not perfect. Like I said, for the money that you're paying for it, and even all these years later, it's still worth it for the enjoyment you'll get out of it and the time you put into it and the replay value. But to be a 10 out of 10 for overall would have to be pretty high, like Witcher 3 high. So it's not that, but it is basically as high as I can give for something that's this type of game. So it's something I usually will download every year or so and then play the crap out of it. I'm like, all right, that was fun, and then put it away, and then I'm like, hey, I want to play that again. Because, like I said before, you can pick it up, play it, 5 minutes, hour, 2 hours, it doesn't matter. It'll keep you coming back. So that's going to wrap it up. I know last week I said I wanted to play the Hotline Miami, but that game intimidates me. We'll see next week what's available. I am going to be out of town, so there may not be a video on Saturday, but probably on Sunday, because I'll be back probably a full day by then from my trip. So anyway, this is Andrew T. Once again, thank you all for watching, and y'all have a good one.